few weeks ago, we talked about psychology is useless, that not all aspects of psychology are good and useful for everyone. The same thing now with philosophy. You can't just say philosophy can help one. Philosophy in general cannot help anyone. The person himself has to work on himself, on his higher self, or on his ego, to reduce the ego and to find his true self, which lies behind because the ego is overwhelming it all the time. And therefore now I will name two philosophies which basically count as very useful for this world, but which actually are crap. And this is, first of all, political philosophy. Many people all over the world live in the direction on the outer world, are just on the material level. The material level is the lowest dimension in that we live. There are much higher dimensions. Higher dimension is the social level, even higher is the spiritual level. So there are other dimensions we don't have access, and most people don't have the access because they don't have the access to their true self, which is connected to that higher dimensions. So they are just living in the material world, managing their material life. And many people are interested in politics. And therefore, whenever they find to philosophy, they are interested in the political aspect of philosophy, which really can't help people because you can't change people on a political level. They fight and they fight. They fight nowadays even with harmless weapons, not always with wars. Okay, there are still some wars. The world is not peaceful enough nowadays, but also there are harmless fights already, which are based on communication, which is, of course, a good development until now, but still these people are entangled in the outer world where they can't change the other person. The same thing happened on the social level. Many people try to change the partner. They say their problems, which they have with the partner, and they expect that the partner changes himself or herself. But this will never happen because the change, first of all, always has to take place in yourself. When you're not ready for self-development, when you don't strive for that you develop inside, where the true development can happen, because this is about the higher self, which lies inside of you. This is your true part of soul. So most people just fight on the outside, not just in the social level, but also on the political level. So they are entangled with their ego because they want the other state. For example, one is in politics and want to say something against the war or against a state, another state. Then they say, yeah, these politicians, they are so bad, they are so corrupt, they have to change. So they expect always others to change. And it's okay when you know better, but you can't change these corrupt politicians. Not with a demonstration, not with knowledge of political philosophy, not with anything. So that's why political philosophy is not useful, because you can know so much. And that's good for you because then you know so much. But one day you will die and you have not reached anything. Maybe some small aspects in everyday life, through some small demonstrations, you have made some changes in your society, but it will not help that the mankind develops, because still these corrupt politicians will not find their true self because they don't want to. They still want to be entangled of ego because they live in this world and they don't even know that they are entangled with their ego, and this ego entangles even more in the material world. And that's the problem. They don't know that, and so they don't develop. And therefore, just for example, for psychology, the depth psychology is good, which I mentioned in that video. But for philosophy, political philosophy is not good. And there was a funny thing once. I was talking about philosophy in general. I made the mistake that I said to a student that philosophy is a good thing. And I didn't define it more clear. Like now in this video, I just told him philosophy is good. And so he said, oh no, please, not philosophy, it's too political. And that was the mistake, because in his mindset, in his worldview, he thinks that philosophy basically is something political, because political philosophy is already so big and this area grew so much, this small area, which was actually a small area of philosophy, and it's just the outcome of a deeper thing actually, because it's just on a material level. We go to the deeper thing later. But the point was that this person just believed that philosophy and politics is the same. And so he didn't understand me. I meant another philosophy. I meant a deeper thing, but I just took the wrong term. I just said philosophy in general, and that was the problem. So he was thinking I mean politics, because for him philosophy was politics, because political philosophy is so much, not just on the surface, it's also so broad, and most people think that philosophy is a political thing, and so they think the wrong thing. When you just say philosophy, then they automatically think of politics, and that's not good, because philosophy has so much essential and deeper aspects. We will come to that in a minute. And the second bad aspect which the current philosophy does is empirical research. Philosophy was always about more in the historical area and more about finding out what the earlier philosophers and great thinkers said and thought. But now it went more and more also to do empirical research. Empirical research is that kind of research which normally in the modern sciences and basically in natural sciences take place. You maybe also have or was faced with a survey, so that you had to set some crosses or to answer some questions, maybe from psychology or something like this. So this is empirical research, because then they got results from many, many people, but just on the surface, just from the outside. Just what people think, what people do, or they even can observe people, but this is also just on the surface, because they just see it with their eyes. Same with an experiment, whatever happens, people just see the results with their eyes. So the research in all of these branches is limited to our senses. And we know that our senses are limited to this material world and that there are other dimensions. A very simple example is a bat or other animals which can see ultraviolet. Ultraviolet is another dimension which we can't see, but it exists. There is much research on it. We have enough evidence for this. And there are other dimensions too, which are much bigger than just ultraviolet. Ultraviolet really doesn't say anything because it's just a visible thing. So, but there are higher dimensions also. Physics is very far here with the quantum field. It can explain that there are other dimensions also, but we are not aware about it. We can't feel them or see them or hear them. As long as we are not in the higher self and don't feel the connectedness, then there is no quantum field for us. But when you feel the connectedness, then you are sure there is something which is connecting everything. For this, by the way, quantum philosophy is a very good philosophy, which connects philosophy and quantum physics and explains the whole. Other good philosophies are those ones who are on the mystical level, or which kind of a mystical branch. You can also find them in the religions, but there are also philosophers which are not entangled with religions, which are religious free, like Plotinus. Plotinus explained the creation of the world beyond the story of the Bible. He explained it in the right way, so that first there was a spiritual world existing, then there was a mental world existing, and out of this then it came lower and lower, and at the end there was this material world coming out. But all came out from one thing, and that was called God. So it's the same direction actually, but he explained it not like creation, like there is the earth and there are trees, and so he was just explaining with the dimensions, what was also really interesting, and I can really recommend to read Plotinus. Other good mysticals are Meister Eckhart or Dionysius from Areopagita or John of the Cross. But okay, some of you may now say, okay, mystical is too spiritual, we want more some practical thing. Yeah, there are other good philosophies too. A very practical thing, or a mix of kind of a mystical and practical, is Arthur Schopenhauer. Arthur Schopenhauer also explained the world, but he was more knowing much about the Eastern philosophy, so it's kind of spiritual. But also he was in practical life and criticizing society. So it's very interesting also to read, or you maybe can find more YouTube videos about Arthur Schopenhauer on YouTube. There are very good ones. And then there are the Stoic. The Stoic was a very great movement of self-development, and also about connecting or to find a way inside of us. Marcus Aurelius, the great emperor, was not just strong in the outside world, but also strong in the inside world, and very reflective, and explained a lot about contemplative things. Stoic knew about how to calm and how to have a balanced lifestyle, not about too much overactivity or overstimulation, but also to calm a lot, that not just nowadays. Many people live very one-sided. They just are very active and very much on their phone or in their work or wherever they are entangled, and they never calm, and there is a lack, and then they are always tired and have no energy, and they wonder why this is, because their energy all gets lost in these media and these work and whatever. But the Stoic knew that there must be a balance, that you have to calm also, minimum 50%. Also, they taught a way of minimalism, which is very good and is a contribution to a calm lifestyle. And last but not least, there was Socrates, which is already 2,500 years ago, as well as Buddha. But I haven't chosen Buddha as example because we don't want to make it too religious here, because then you or some people could think that I'm from one direction, but we are open-minded here, talking about a mix of all philosophers. And so this is why I have chosen now Socrates, because also he is free from any religion or from a certain thing. Socrates is very famous for ethical teachings, but it's not just about teachings, because he was not standing in front of people teaching, maybe sometimes, but his basic and new developed thing was the Socratic method, his conversation style with which he could bring people to deeper insights. With Socrates, there was a new epoch. Not the nature or the outer world was center stage anymore, but with Socrates, humanity took center stage. And many people say he's so famous for his ethics. Yes, he brought ethics, but at the same time, there were other movements also which brought ethics in this world. So this was not the main aspect of Socrates. Socrates' main aspect was also, he talked about ethics, but the thing was, he was not teaching, but instead he opened people, he freed them from their old mindsets, that they are open for new perspectives, just through his conversation method. So that means he was very cool. He came to the marketplace or to the gym. At this time, there were gyms which were much bigger than today, and many people went there. It was a famous movement at this time, because it was 2,500 years ago. Many wars happened on this world, also in ancient Greece, and so that's why. But just besides, the thing is, Socrates went to public places, whether it's a gym or marketplace, and there he talked to people. First, he just started with a small talk, like an everyday life topic, but later he came more and more closer to an ethical aspect. He started with a normal topic. Small talk is good to open the people, first of all, for a conversation in general, but also it is easier for them compared to when you directly start with a deep ethical topic. Now, this would over-challenge so many, so that's why he started with an easy topic, which was from their everyday life. For example, he came to a goldsmith or so on the marketplace, and he just asked about this work or this everyday life from this person. And then the thing was that Socrates just asked questions. So Socrates, as I told, was not teaching. Most of the time, he let the other person talk, but then he always asked questions in between. That was his basic style of this famous method. So the person talked from his everyday life, and then Socrates asked questions. And he continued like this. The person talked, and Socrates asked questions. And this goes on and on until the person got a breakdown. Because Socrates tried to bring the person in an insecure level, not just to blame the person, not to make him more insecure. That was not his target. He never was about having right, or he didn't want to make the people feeling bad or so. That was never his aim. He wanted to open this person still. He wanted to do something good, but not to be just ethical good, but instead to make the person open to understand ethics on a deeper level. But this can just happen when the person first is open-minded, when he leaves and lets go his meaning about a thing, when he forget what he already knew before, then he will become open for new perspectives. Actually, this is true research compared to other research, which I explained earlier, which is empirical and just observing things. Because when you observe, you interpret your data, and then you just interpret it also with your mindset, with what we already know. And so, but this will not bring new results. This will always just give more evidence for the same result, but this will not bring new results and to find and to open to new dimensions and to other things, because this is still limited. But Socrates went through these limits while opening these people. So they became free from their mindsets, from their beliefs, from their thoughts, from their what they believed earlier, from their old knowledge, from their meaning. Basically, it was just meaning. Because it was a marketplace. Many people went there just to get new information, what's new in the city, blah, blah, blah. This was just a blah, 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 because Socrates was knowing this. And it was not true knowledge. For Socrates, true knowledge comes from the inside. So you can say Socrates was also about the higher self, because when he opened a person, that the person gets knowledge from within, from intuition, which comes from the higher self. But therefore, he had to break this person through his conversation. This aspect actually is called aporia. This breaking point is aporia, which is this insecurity where people fall when suddenly their worldview or their perspective breaks down. A good example here is that he once talked with a famous judge. Judges, as you know, they know their laws. They know how to judge people. They know which punishments they have to give for which deed. And so they have a very strong knowledge of a thing, because all of their knowledge is in the law books. And suddenly Socrates comes to this marketplace, meets this person by accident, and he tried to bring him to fall. And the interesting aspect is that with this person, he directly could start to talk about an ethical topic. And this was justice, because he talked with a judge. And of course, then justice is the aspect from his job. So he went to this judge, and it was funny, and he asked, what is justice? And this judge tried to explain with an example, when, for example, someone steals and then he gets punishment from the law and from the judge. So he was thinking that's the only thing. Then Socrates was saying, no, this was just an example, but still we don't know what is justice in general. So try to define justice, please. And then he again tried something, but again, it not worked, because it came just from the laws, from the books, what the person has learned. But then it was limited, because it was just limited to the knowledge of the book. But this was never really saying what justice actually is. And so again and again, Socrates with his question tried to bring this person to fall, just fall on a mental level, that this person gets confused and in this insecurity called aporia, that after then this person suddenly is open-minded and is stunned that there is more knowledge from inside when he gets the access, when Socrates has success, that this person gets open-minded. But most of the time, these people which had a high position in the city or in the state, they were not so open-minded. They were limited because their egos were so strong due to their position and to their lifestyle, that they have this good thing and that they are such a famous person or so. And this brought them to a very negative thing, that their ego was so strong, and they still believe that this is true what they think, and there are no other results, and there are no other things. There is no knowledge, there is no insight, there is no nothing. So they were also like nowadays people are in the smartphone and entangled in their work. It was 2,500 years ago. There is not really a change through thousands of years. But there were a few which were open-minded. These were basically young people. Socrates was also surrounded by many followers, which were about 20, 25. They were still open because they were not so established. They had not their high position in society like that lawyer or judge. So they were open-minded, still wanted to learn. Actually, they were expected to learn, but they were just following him, watching him, how he spoke with people on the marketplace. So sometimes he also spoke with some of the students, but sometimes he was just giving this show, asking others spontaneously. But he never taught. There are maybe very few teachings, or which basically the knowledge of Socrates you can't find in the books, because he didn't wrote. And just a few of his students wrote. For example, Plato. Plato is the famous student of him, and he wrote a lot. And there are some teachings in Plato's writings, but researchers on Plato say that these teachings could also be thought from Plato, which he integrated. So it's not clear if they are really from Socrates, or that Plato just used Socrates in his books, because he was writing like a screenplay. In Socrates or Plato's time, theater was very famous, and it was also famous when you became a writer to write screenplays. And so Plato wrote in dialogues. So he could also use Socrates for his own ideas. That is not absolutely clear. Researchers on that some say so, some say so. But still, most of the people say that Socrates never taught. His special method was about just asking questions to bring this person out of this balance of this outer living style, which was just on the surface. So that means the other person came out of balance, got in this aporia, gave up their ego and their meaning and everything what has to do and where the ego was craving or holding on to, and let go these old things or this old knowledge, meaning. Then these people became open-minded, and suddenly the intuition came. So they were connected with the higher self, and they brought out other knowledge, other perspectives, new research, new ideas. And I guess they also felt this blissful thing, this delightful thing, which meditators also have, or other people which have this inner access. I hope this video could help some. If you have some ideas, if you have some contributions, please let me know down below in the comments. Have a good time. See you soon. Bye.